Bankruptcy is a form of relief or protection from your creditors. You've probably heard the expression bankruptcy relief or bankruptcy protection. That's where you go into court with a petition in bankruptcy. It's based on the bankruptcy code. The bankruptcy code is a book. It's one law, but it's just a book, and that book is full of chapters like any other book. And you hear the Chapter 7, Chapter 11, Chapter 12, those types of things. Well, they're just chapters in that book. And that's all one big federal law that allows you to seek protection from your creditors. In other words, something happens in your life and you can't pay your bills. You get laid off, you have an illness, whatever it is, you just get overextended, whatever it might be. You cannot meet your financial obligations as they come, and you go into bankruptcy court with a petition in bankruptcy seeking protection from your creditors. In other words, you're going to straighten this out, and you need protection to keep your creditors from taking your property while you're straightening it out. So you don't want to lose your home, you don't want to lose your car and other things while you're in this temporary situation. So bankruptcy allows you to do that, reorganize your debts. Now, the other side of the coin is you might not be seeking to reorganize and keep all your assets. You might say, you might be in a situation where you're like the mouse, that's in the trap. I don't want any more cheese, just let me go. So you have debts and you simply can't pay them. You do not have the wherewithal to pay those debts. So you're asking the court to discharge them or relieve you of the obligation to pay them. Those are the two chapters of bankruptcy that are available to individuals, and both of them in different ways for each, but they can allow you to keep your property and still be free of debts that you can no longer pay. Well, the two chapters that are available to individuals, individual consumer debtors, people like us, that would be Chapter 13 and Chapter 7. Chapter 13 is where you're trying to reorganize your debts. You can pay, you have a job, you have a steady income, you can pay your debts, you just can't pay them when they're due, and you can't pay all of them. So to simplify it some, let's say that you had income of $2,500 a month, but when you add up all your bill payments, your debts, comes to $3,000. So you really are not able to make them. You're $500 short of being able to pay your bills each month. So the theory behind Chapter 13 is it allows you to cut those debts down and make ends meet. In other words, when you finish this reorganization, rather than being $500 negative, you're $500 positive, and into that $500 you can fit all of your bill payments. That's the theory. You keep all your property, you have a reduced amount that you pay, and it's managed that way. It adds cash flow to your life. Now, Chapter 7, on the other hand, is for people who simply can't pay their bills. They can't pay any. They have no disposable income to pay their bills with. They're seeking discharge of their debts, relief from their creditors in that regard. Under some circumstances, you can do a Chapter 7, get discharge of your debts, non-secure debts, and still keep your property, like your house, car, things like that. But you aren't seeking to reorganize, you're seeking to discharge your debts. Those are the two differences. Yes, if you have a source of income. The first thing I would ask you, if you were sitting in my office and you wanted to keep your house, I would say, if you were current on your house payment today, you were not behind, you were current, could you make the payment? If you answered no to that, it's going to be pretty hard to keep your house, because you have to have a source of income to do that. So what Chapter 13 lets you do as far as keeping your house is, let's say that your house payment is $1,000 a month, and you haven't made a payment in 4 months. You're 4 months behind on it, but all of a sudden now you've got a job and you're able to make the payment. Well, the mortgage company says, no, we want all the money right now. We want the whole $4,000, plus you owe us $500 in attorney fees and things like that. You can't do that. So Chapter 13 allows you to put that money, that past due amount, into bankruptcy and spread it out over 5 years rather than all at once. In other words, that $4,500 that you were supposed to pay can be amortized over a 60-month period and kind of added to your house note, so that it makes it much easier, and the creditor is bound to accept it. So it works out well for everyone. He gets his money, and you get to keep your house. Same with your car, except the deal with your car is even better because real estate is protected in bankruptcy by Congress. They like the real estate market, and they think it's an important part of the U.S. economy, and they don't want mortgage companies to have to take less than what the contract calls for. So car dealerships are not like that. In many situations, you can reduce your car payment as well as keep your car. Let's say that you've had your car for 2.5 years. That's a qualifying period, 2.5 years, not 2 years, not 3, but at least 2.5 years. You can cut the value of your car. You can cut the amount you owe down to what the actual value is according to the book. So let's say you've had a car for 2.5 years and you owe $20,000 on it. But when you look it up in the book, acceptable standard NADA book, you find that it's really only worth $12,000. Well, you amortize a payment out over 60 months for $12,000, not $20,000. It cuts your payment way down that way. If you have not had it for 2.5 years, you can still save yourself a lot of money on interest and things like that and keep your car. What can be done about it, to be perfectly honest about it, it's very limited. They're not dischargeable, so you can't do anything with them in Chapter 7, except for one thing that I'm going to tell you about. If you're trying to discharge your debts in Chapter 7, you're having struggling with your student loans, perhaps the reason you're having trouble paying them is because you have so many other debts, like credit card bills or medical bills or something like that. You could discharge all of those, which would make it easier to pay your student loans in Chapter 7, but Chapter 13 is probably a better choice for student loans, because in there you can't discharge them either, but you can control them to keep the creditor from doing whatever he might do to forcibly collect his debt. And you can pay them back over 5 years. You can amortize the student loan over 5 years. And if that's still too high a payment, you can carry them over. In other words, at the end of the 5-year plan, you would still have debt left over, but the debt is under control, kind of. Does that make sense? I know it's complicated, but let's say that you could only afford to pay 10% of that student loan over the 5-year period. At the end of that 5 years, you're still going to owe 90% of it. That's the way it works. So that has to be dealt with in some way, but it can get you through a temporary hard situation and protect you from the creditor at the same time. Well, if you file bankruptcy, if you're sitting in a bankruptcy lawyer's office, your credit's probably not very good to begin with. If it is, you might not be in bankruptcy, but here at Darrell Castle and Associates, we have a credit repair program to get your credit score. That's really the important thing. What is your credit score? To help you raise your credit score to 720 or better in a short period of time. That's free to our clients. It's a $1,000 value. You can look it up, but it's free to our clients. But yes, bankruptcy is going to stay on your credit for up to 10 years. It is going to affect your credit, but your credit's already effective. The main thing is to reorganize your financial life and get yourself in a position where you can live, enjoy life, feed your family, keep your property, things like that. And then we'll help you rebuild your credit score to where it should be. Well, first thing I would tell people who are in a financial crisis is don't do anything that doesn't make any sense, that is going to make a bad situation worse. Those things would be payday loans, title loans on your car, things like that. Those types of things indicate that there's something really wrong in your whole financial structure. You either are not or are unable to live within your means. You have to have money that is beyond what you make. And when you get that money, what's going to happen is that the next time you get paid, you're going to have even less money. You'll have even less of an opportunity to pay it. So you really need to take a hard look at reorganizing your whole financial life and say, well, where do I go from here? How can I recover from this and kind of start over? In football, they call it, maybe I should drop back and punt. You should talk to a professional that can help you with that, to say, well, what can I do to start a new financial life and have a new beginning? Sometimes you have to do that.
You talk to these people every day, and you would encourage them to call you.
I sure would. I think, well, I've been doing it for a long time, for one thing, and I've talked to a few thousand people now, and just as you think you've seen everything, you find out you haven't. But yes, I would encourage them to call me. I think they'd be glad they did.